Hello! Welcome to Shari's Quarantine Kitchen. Shari's Low Carb Kitchen. Depending on what time you are watching this, what time of the year, this is middle of April 2020. And as you know, the entire nation is in a pandemic and most states are under various orders of safer at home and non-essential businesses being closed and all that good stuff. So I thought on this beautiful Saturday morning, while my kids are actually outside playing, I was going to take advantage and put together a little cold brew coffee video. Don't mind the interruptions because people are going to continue to come in and out because that is life with a big family. But so for many years, I didn't like coffee. I would try, and even you could put as much sugar and cream in that coffee as possible, and it still tasted disgusting. But I always loved the smell of coffee, and I loved cappuccinos, so it was kind of weird. But I had just resigned to the fact that I was never going to be a coffee drinker, and I was actually okay with that. But part of me didn't feel grown up because I didn't like coffee, and I know that that's completely silly because a lot of people don't like coffee and are totally grown up, and that's fine. Through discussing with some other friends, I realized that, maybe it was the type of coffee that I was drinking. So I learned that darker roasts are less bitter than like a lighter roast. And here I had been trying to do the lighter roast because I thought darker roast would be like more coffee flavor. But what actually happens in a medium or darker roast is the longer those beans are roasted, the more they naturally caramelize. Because we're ketogenic in this house, I was like, well, it's caramelized, is that not sugar? But it's not, it just takes away more of the bitter. So a friend of mine gave me a French press because I wasn't going to go out and buy a coffee pot. And I started doing French press coffee. And it was okay. And I didn't mind it. But I noticed that I could never get the flavor quite right. A lot of times it tasted burnt. My stomach hurt after drinking it. And I just, I wouldn't feel good. So I was, back to the drawing board. I'm not going to drink coffee anymore. Then I came across cold brew coffee. And I was like, well, isn't that just coffee that's iced? So I started doing more research on it, and I realized it's not coffee that's just iced. And there is more evidence coming out showing that it's actually easier on the stomach because it's less acidic, it's less bitter, it's easier on the adrenal glands. It may actually have more health properties than hot brew coffee. So, and the reason being is that when you hot brew a coffee, coffee has antioxidants and polyphenols and stuff like that in it. When you expose that to heat through the brewing process, because it's a very strong heat and prolonged heat, it breaks down those antioxidants, so you're not getting as many of them. Whereas brewing with cold water and brewing that out over a long amount of time, it coaxes the coffee and all the goodness out without having a lot of the destroying of the antioxidants and the other things. I also find that it tastes a lot better. It does not taste bitter. It's less acidic. My stomach doesn't hurt after drinking it. Because I struggle with adrenal issues, I still limit myself to 1, maybe 2 cups of coffee a day. And I don't do it for me, I don't do it for the caffeine because caffeine actually makes me tired. So, but I like the flavor of it. I like being able to play around with different flavors, adding different extracts, and just making fun creations. So for me, it's more about that than anything. And now I can actually enjoy the flavors of coffee, and I feel like such a big girl. But people were asking, well, what do you mean by cold brew? How do you cold brew? So that's what I want to show you today is my method of cold brewing. And there's lots of different methods. You can Google, there's different apparatuses that you can buy. I just try to keep it nice and simple. The other thing that I like about cold brewing versus doing like the French press, my French press, which I still use, I just use it for different things, I would have to make 4 cups at a time. Well, I didn't drink all of that, so then it would go in the refrigerator and I'd still have to warm it up. The nice thing about the cold brew is I make 6 cups at a time, but it's concentrated. So those 6 cups are actually 12 cups of coffee. So I can just stick the jar in my refrigerator and I've got, you know, a week to 2 weeks worth of coffee, depending on if my daughter is home or if we have company and I make coffee or whatnot. Of course, it's quarantine right now, so who's having company? But my coffee still doesn't seem to be lasting as long, mostly because my daughter is here, which is just fine, because I like being able to share the creations and things like that. So to do the cold brew, what I use, I need water, cold water. You guys can go on through, just stay quiet, please. I use a 1/2 gallon mason jar. You want your coffee grounds. For the coffee, I use whole beans and then I grind them to a medium ground, so that what you would typically use in a French press is what you're going to use for cold brew. I have the funnel. You don't necessarily need to use the funnel, but because I have everything already measured out, it's going to help keep it from making as much of a mess. And I use a nut milk bag. As you can see, this is quite well used. So I got this off of Amazon in a 3-pack. The reason I do this is because it just keeps it makes it easier to dispose of the grounds when I'm finished. You can just put the coffee grounds right in the mason jar, and that's totally fine. And then when you go to strain, the other reason that I don't do that is because when I did do that, it would disrupt the grounds and it would pull more acid out than what I wanted. So with that, the other thing that you can do when you are brewing is you can add different flavorings besides the coffee. So I have some of these Simply Organic pre-brew coffee spices. Now they're made for hot brew, but they work really nice in the cold brew too. I just found I have to use a little bit more because, again, this is concentrate. So like this one is pumpkin spice, smells lovely. It just gives a little bit of a different flavor. This one is chai spice, so that has a lot of the yummy like the cinnamon and the ginger and different things like that. And then this one is cinnamon spices, and it's wonderful as well. Another thing that you can do if you wanted to brew with cocoa powder, you can add cocoa powder right in there and then, you know, let it set and then brew it. I have only done that once because I actually, I don't flavor my coffee that much. I'll use these because they're subtle, so then I can add different flavors and it won't mess it up. But I do like a good cappuccino or chocolate coffee, but I'll add this when I warm my coffee up. So how I make it is where it's concentrated for my taste, which is the middle of the road strength. You're gonna do 50-50, so you're gonna have 4 ounces of the concentrate, 4 ounces of water, and then warm that up either on the stove or in the microwave. I don't have a microwave, so mine gets done on the stove. And at that time, you can add your sweeteners and have a good day. You can add your sweeteners or extracts, which I will go through in part 3. So with that, this is super easy. You just put your nut milk bag in there. I usually don't use a funnel, but again, it's just going to be easier because I don't feel like making a mess. So this is 1.5 cups of the ground coffee. Now you can change your amount to make it. The stronger that you make it, the more concentrated that it's going to be. And I just find that this is, really good rather than when you are getting ready to warm it, like trying to figure out a 2-to-1 ratio or whatever. Just roast. And that's why I use filter, but a 1-to-1 ratio is just fine. So I'll clean that up later. And again, they have on Amazon, I saw, and I may get it, I just haven't gotten around to it. They actually have a cylinder that sits right in the mason jar that you can use for the brewing, but I'm cheap and I don't like to complicate things, so this works just fine for me. So once you have coffee grounds in, you are going to take your water. Now this is 6 cups of water. I already measured it out just for the ease and time. And all you're going to do is you are just going to pour this in over the coffee. I like to try and just like gently soak the grounds first, just as if you were watering a plant. Kind of help those grounds bloom a little bit. And that's it. If I was going to add any flavorings or anything, I would add them now right in, or actually I would have pre-mixed them in with the coffee grounds so that they were right there. I'm going to tie my bag up. Just kind of wiggle it around a little bit, get it submerged. You're going to cap this. And then you're going to put this, you can leave it out on the counter for 12 to 16 hours and brew it that way. Or you can brew it even slower in the refrigerator for about 24 hours and then strain it. So whatever works best for you. It all depends on my timing when I'm making it. If I know I'm not going to have time in a 24-hour period, I'll leave it. I'll start it at night and leave it on the counter until about the 12 to 15-hour mark, and then go ahead and strain that. So with that, this is the conclusion of part 1. One other thing that I wanted to mention is the quality of the beans is super important. You do want to try and get organic beans, because coffee is one of the highest pesticide sprayed crops. So having it organic is really important. I think that was everything. So next part, we'll be going through the straining process.